Okay, so this week we're going to be talking about market space. Now the Americans kind of call this sandbox. It's the space of market that you operate in. And more importantly, what's about markets you don't operate in. This allows us to target and focus clearly. This allows us to drive sales and marketing strategy in specific areas. So the trick is here is being specific, but not too specific. I'll talk about that in a second. So if you're saying, what is my market space? Oh, my market space is all the businesses in the UK. Or everybody in the UK is everybody, then you're into big trouble. Now, the big boys can get away with that, supermarkets, etc. But if you're a smaller business out there, then I suggest we get a bit more specific and we get clear what space you operate in. Market space is also on the page to define what page you are on. So if you are operating in a different market space, it's a different page. As I said before, within BGI speaking, it's a different market space than if you're in BGI consulting. That's in a management consulting space, one's in a speaking space. So just think about what market space your business is in, and you might have multiple ones, which means you actually should have separate pages and multiple strategies. Okay, so that's you've got to have this. If you don't know what space you're operating on, you're running blind. You're literally going after the market blind. So market space is key for driving marketing strategy. Okay, so the mistakes I see mostly in market space is what I've kind of alluded to already. Is people go too broad or people go too narrow. So it's everybody, it's every business, etc. Now, within BGI consulting, I'm very specific. From a one-to-one perspective, my one-to-one clients who work with me are typically 1 million to 30 million pound businesses. Now, I have a couple of outliers on the larger scale, but that's who I work with specifically. And that's for reasons, strategic reasons of why I work with those, but I'm very, very clear. So what's your market? Think about what your market space is and be clear on it and what your page is. The other thing is people go too narrow. I've usually just finished up a masterclass. I was in a masterclass this morning and this issue came out there about niching. There's a lot of people out going, you've got a niche, which I agree with, by the way, but you can niche too far. If you go so niche, now move back up a few videos. Go back and if you haven't watched the video already, the purpose video, 5 elements to purpose, one of which is market opportunity. There needs to be a market opportunity big enough to earn enough money. So if you niche so far, it might be that you're limiting the market opportunity that's available to you. An example of this recently was a client who wanted to go into the vegan market. Now, I've been vegan and a vegetarian and still remain as a large part of my diet. So I understand this marketplace quite well. And although I totally endorse it, I love vegans out there, all you vegans, I love you. But veganism is quite a niche market. Now, can you make business out of that market? Yes, you can. But you have to be careful because the vegetarian market is much, much bigger if you choose to go after that market, not just the vegan market. So you can niche too far, is what I'm saying to you. So you just have to be careful in how you define your market space. Now, I've already mentioned the speaking business. So within BGI, speaking, this has been the biggest lesson to me over the last year. I'm very much more on the international speaking circuit now. I love speaking. You probably tell I'm in front of the camera loving speaking. But this speaking business is a very, very different market space to all the other market spaces I operate in. That's why, the way, I have a speaker agent and a speaker manager who manages it all for me because it's not a market space I'm familiar with. So just be careful because if you start going into a space you know nothing about, that might be a good thing. You might be able to shake the industry up, but equally, you just got to know the space you're playing in. Right now, as I'm filming this, literally a week or so ago, on the news in the UK and globally, Blockbusters went down. Now, that's not the television program with the funny little squares going across the screen, for those people who remember that. Blockbusters video. Now, why did that happen? There's a number of reasons behind that, but it really struck me about market space. Blockbusters carved out a market space many years ago. And I remember the days when we used to potter down to the Blockbusters store and hire a video and take it home because that was the only thing available. So their market space was clear. They were in the video market, ultimately then the DVD market, and it was a collect. They built this massive infrastructure of stores and it was go and pick it up and then bring it back the next day, you'll get a penalty. That market space changed and Blockbusters didn't change enough with it. And today we sit here, technology enabled a whole different thing. So the market space Blockbusters operated in, although it was shrinking rapidly, and more importantly over here was a different market space, which was the click this button and you can actually download anything on demand. Now, I still think it's phenomenal what's happened with broadband and technology, the rest of it. I can sit there with my Sky Plus HD and click a movie and it's there instantaneously. That killed Blockbuster. But Blockbuster's, you know, it took a while to die, by the way. I'm surprised it didn't go down a lot longer. But that was because the market space it occupied was no longer there. Other market spaces came in. So just be aware, market space changes. So you've got to be clear, this is the market I'm in. Where's this market going? That's the strategy. We'll talk about strategy in a whole different video. But just be clear on the space you occupy now. Make sure it's big enough. Make sure it's not too small, not too big. And be clear as you can on what market space you operate in.